Today's lesson is prediction. You've been learning that readers take cues from text, doing the mind work the text signals them to do. I'm sure you all have read a story or watched a movie when something makes you think, I know what's going to happen. Like when the bad guy robs the bank and takes somebody hostage and you think, oh no, and your stomach gets all tangled in knots. And then the superhero comes in and saves the day. What you are doing is a critical part of reading well. You are predicting. So readers, a couple weeks ago when Mulan came out, we were watching it and it was a little bit different than the cartoon. But as we were sitting there watching it, the part with the matchmaker where Mulan and her sister go in to the matchmaker and down from the ceiling comes a spider. And we learned that Mulan's sister is scared of spiders. So what does Mulan do? Mulan captures it. Now you know something's going to happen. So my stepdaughter says, I bet that spider is going to come out and scare her sister. And sure enough, the matchmaker made Mulan take the cup away, in which the spider then crawled across the table, and Mulan's sister screamed, and then the disaster ensued. She knew that something had to happen because we had learned in the past that her sister was scared of spiders. So today I want to teach you that when readers understand a story well, they often think, what will happen next? They imagine how the story will go based on what has already happened, as well as their knowledge of how stories tend to go. Then, as a story unrolls, they say, yes, I was right. Or, oh, I was wrong. That's surprising. Let's do this work with our Read Aloud Stone Fox. You should have listened to Chapter 4. If you have not done that yet, please pause the video and go to Chapter 4 in Google Classroom under Classwork, Read Aloud Stone Fox. Okay, if you did read it, then do you remember how Clifford Snyder pays Little Willie and Grandfather a visit during that chapter? And by the end of it, we learned what? All right, I want you to tell somebody who's near, what did you learn at the end of chapter 4? Right, we learned that grandfather hasn't been paying taxes on the farm for over 10 years and he owes $500. So that's the reason he's been so depressed and ill. And they're going to lose the farm if they don't pay it. So there's a lot at stake here. Let's turn our brains on high and let's see if we can predict what will happen next. Do you think you can try this? So what can we use to make smart guesses, not wild ones? Well, you all know a thing or two about how stories tend to go. You know that the main character faces a problem and then has to try to solve it. Poor Willie is facing a lot. With that in mind, let's think about what has happened leading up to this chapter that connects to what's happening now and see if that can help us guess what's apt to happen next. So one thing that we can do is jot down some big things that have happened leading up to now. Thumbs up if you remembered what happened at the beginning of the story. Right, one of the big things, grandfather won't get out of bed or talk. Okay, now I want you to think about, in order, the big things that happened after that. So after grandfather won't get out of bed or talk, Do you remember who little Willie goes and sees? Yep, Doc Smith. So Doc Smith decides that grandfather is healthy, but doesn't want to live. So what does Doc Smith suggest? Yep, that little Willie split up the family. And little Willie refuses. Then little Willie figures out how to talk with grandfather using signs, using the palm up, palm down, 1, 2. He's learning how to communicate with him. Then little Willie discovers that there's no money. So little Willie and Searchlight harvest the potatoes, but grandfather still doesn't get better. And then we learned that Snyder tells little Willie that grandfather owes taxes, and if he doesn't pay, then the farm will be taken away. Readers, the problems keep getting worse and worse for little Willie. Grandfather is broke, and they may lose the farm. So based on what's happened so far, what might happen next? I'd like for you to pause the video and either tell somebody or write down what you think could happen next. Okay, so look at your prediction. Did you think about what you know about the characters to figure out what they are likely to do? Good predictors do that. Did you think about what little Willie tends to do in the face of difficulties? Might one of the minor characters play a part in the upcoming story? If you'd like to revise or rewrite your prediction, pause the video and do that. You can come up with hunches about what might happen next. You don't need to be absolutely sure. Try writing, could it be that? Or maybe. Are you ready for an even harder challenge? If you have predicted what might happen, try to think how the story will get there. If you predicted Willie might find a way to raise some money, go ahead and try to predict how he might do that. Remember, expert fiction readers turn their brains on high to truly understand what is happening in their stories. Making thoughtful predictions is one part of that mind work. Unless you are starting a new book, take out something that you've already been reading and generate a prediction. Follow the same steps. Think about how stories tend to go and about what has happened so far in your book. Then try to predict what might happen next. You can write it on a Post-it, or you can use your digital reading notebook to write down your predictions. As you read today, parts of the text will push you to envision. Do so, sketch the scene, and then read on, expecting to revise that mental picture as you learn more. There will also be places that nudge you to predict too. Put your predictions on a Post-it note, in your digital reading notebook, or just write it on a piece of paper. Remember, as you read on, to check whether your prediction was right. They won't always be, because authors want to surprise readers. But if lots of your predictions feel way off, use that as another comprehension check, because it may suggest you are missing important stuff as you read and that you need to reread. Don't forget to fill in your reading log in your digital reading notebook. Are you ready to give this a try? Okay, off you go.